So we've been talking about grid integration, energy management a little bit more today. Yesterday we touched upon it already, but now we are going to continue, and I'm very excited to have Joschi Jennermann from Elli up next on the stage. He's Vice President Residential, and some of you might have heard the discussion between EnBW, Mercedes and Tibber this morning, and it was very much about what benefits can you create for the end consumer by smart charging. And I'm going to challenge Joschi a bit and hope that he's going to make clear how Elli can create real benefits here, because we saw the margin is quite small. The title of Joschi's talk is how Elli turns charging pain into gain. So we're very much looking forward to that. Welcome, Joschi.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me, Team Hubject. Thanks for having us as Elli. The next minutes are going to be about turning charging pain into gain. And in around 20 minutes you will have learned how we can do actually zero emission at zero cost level. My name is Joschi Jennermann. I'm hosting one of the 4 business lines at Elli. And let's only shortly spend a few seconds on Elli, because this gives the baseline on what I'm going to tell you. So at Elli we have 4 business lines. The first 2 ones are quite connected to the core business of the Volkswagen Group. So us being founded 2018 as part of this huge Volkswagen Group network to offer everything considering charging and energy. And the first business line, most of you probably are quite familiar with that, is the MSP business, addressing the question on how to charge your electric vehicle in public. And there we're offering around 700, or I think these days even more than 750,000 charging points to our customers Europe-wide. And you get a little bit the idea of it, so making it really easy and convenient to as many customers as possible. And you can find this product either in the Elli app, but you can also see it white labeled across the brands of the Volkswagen Group and even with other B2B partners, for example, Sixt. The second business line is the second question you're facing once you're using an electric vehicle, is the question about how to charge your vehicle at home. And I'm going to spend today giving you some insights and impulses on that, referring also and explaining a bit what we're doing, and I think probably more interesting for you, why we're doing that. The third business line is commercial. This is addressing all the needs that you have as company once you're electrifying your fleet. A lot of questions are popping up, starting from which kind of charging infrastructure do you need, how do you organize it, how do you reimburse transaction once your employees are charging at home. And there the approach is to give a full package offering and make it as easy as possible to companies. And then the fourth business line is energy. It was quite a surprise during the last years that a company like Volkswagen is also offering energy tariffs. And perhaps it has been a little bit niche and a little bit the hobby the last years. But these days you can really see and understand why we're doing that and how that is feeding the other business lines. And there we're offering energy tariffs. We also started last year on working on power centers. So power centers is an expression we're using for bigger industrial battery storages and executing further business case on that. I will come back to that. So you see, this is our interpretation, our way, how we want to combine mobility and energy into one compiling system. And the next slide, I do really like this slide. I mean, it's a colorful, fancy slide. I think we saw a similar one shown by Markus this morning. But this slide actually, it shows everything, right? It shows the complexity of all the elements meeting each other. It also shows the chance and the potential that is within that. And also probably most of you are aware of the big challenge we have by shifting more and more towards renewable energies, and the capacity that and the way how we're organizing the grid, that we need to find ways that are smarter, that are more efficient than just bringing more capacity into the grid, but organizing it in the best sustainable and efficient way. I will give you some insights on that. We do we do believe that the electric vehicle is a quite important puzzle stone in this. And I'm not saying that because we're part of the Volkswagen Group, but with the electric vehicle, you have the most emotional component in that setting. You have probably the most expensive component in that setting. And you bring a component to the game that can actually leverage a lot of the challenges that we're having today. So let's start perhaps with a little question for you, and don't worry, you don't need to speak up loud, but do that exercise perhaps for 5 seconds in your head. So what do you think? What percentage of VW customers are actually regular charging at home? Do you think this is a relevant case? What do you think? How much percentage? It's actually 95%. And this has been the result of a study executed asking thousands of ID customers, ID being the electric product line of Volkswagen, about their charging behavior, their charging needs. And for sure, the study had a clear B2C focus, but let's consider that for a moment. 95% of the customers are regular charging at home. What does it mean? That means that you really cannot just offer the electric vehicle as a standalone product. You need to offer it as a solution package, right? There are so many questions are popping up with the moment where you're buying, where you're leasing an electric vehicle. This dramatically changes the way how you're offering a BEV compared to how OEM sales is working the last years with a focus on ICE. And it's really important to mention that because many of the discussions I'm having left and right, it's a lot of focus on bidirectional charging. And yes, I will hit this topic as well. But I think we really need to understand that it's about really fixing the base, making the consistent offer already today. And let's dig in a little bit deeper, okay? So the first one, that's actually one of the major reasons why the Volkswagen Group is offering charging hardware and charging solutions. I mean, there are quite a lot of chargers out there, right? Does the world need another charger? Yes, it does actually. And it's good that the Volkswagen Group is offering it because we do see what I mentioned before, that charging is such significant part of the product experience, of the customer journey. You should not leave it left or right. You should not leave it to the customer to somehow come up with a setting that maybe it works sophisticated, maybe not. So our clear intention on offering these products is having the best customer experience in the connection between vehicle and charging infrastructure. And you can see that actually in two ways. The first one is really in the front end, right? There's a lot of focus on making the vehicle app the central touch point. And if you open up the Volkswagen app, it's actually nice, right? You have everything that you need to organize your car within this app. So it's a central touch point that is used by millions of customers as of today. And of course, charging is a crucial part of that. So it makes sense to provide a customer journey where charging is an integrated part of that experience, right? And not by opening another app, and perhaps there's not even an app for such an important topic. That has been the one side. The other side is in the background. And in the background, all of you are aware that, and we touched the topic already several times today and yesterday, it's about smart energy, smart charging. It's getting more complex. So making sure that the vehicle communicates in the best possible way, may it be via 15.11.8, might be by really sophisticated back-end communication. This is how we interpret and how we see the right customer offering when we're talking about charging in general today with a focus of home charging. The second one is maybe a point where you could challenge me on, shouldn't somebody like the Volkswagen Group see that as a clear basis and an easy way to go? The integrated sales journey, and actually it's not, right? Do the exercise, enter one of the Volkswagen dealers, and there's a range in it, right? You have dealers that are super innovative, they understood the way to pitch e-mobility to their customers, but you also still have a lot of old-fashioned dealerships that are not there yet. And this is crucial because, how I mentioned before, it's not about selling the standalone vehicle, it's about selling the solution. And I really like some of the aspects at the panel talk this morning because Frank, my colleague from Mercedes-Benz, he mentioned in his project what's important for the customer. it's education, and it's trust, right? And this is where we spend also a lot of focus on it, because it's about guiding not only your customer, but also everyone involved in your value chain. So this is why we're spending a lot of time, a lot of energy in educating all the relevant stakeholders in the way, how does e-mobility work, to enable them in a way that the customer can actually find the right setting for them. And for example, we're introducing now a supporting sales tool that can be used actually by the salesperson and the customer to really easily guide the customer through all the charging needs, referring to the best product choice. The fourth one should also be worth mentioning, because and probably many of you are facing similar challenges these days on how to set up the charging business in the most economical way. And we as Elli, we are convinced that finding an approach where you are supporting direct sales but also indirect sales makes most sense. We're offering direct sales channels in a way that we're hosting web shops, not only for Elli, but also hosting the web shops for our car brands. And this is interesting, right? This is providing the highest margins, and it's also enabling us in being more flexible and playing the way how we are campaigning, how we're addressing the customer. So that gives us a lot of room. At the same time, if you want to scale, if you want to leverage, you need to use B2B channels, right? And of course, we set major focus on enabling the automotive dealership network, but also in addition, other energy and automotive partners. So I have a second question for you. What are the largest barriers to buying a BEV? And probably that's quite an easy one, right? It's all about range and costs. During the last weeks, the teams have spent a lot of energy on coming up with a simulation and with a deeper understanding on what are actually the leverages within charging to bring down the costs. And we set up and combined a huge number of different user behaviors, customer groups, electricity prices, residential settings. So you can imagine that was quite a heavy simulation, understanding, okay, what's bringing the best impact for the customer. And I will share some significant insights of that with you guys. So the first one is really just by adding a dynamic tariff and organizing it in a smart way, you can cut charging cost into half. And I'm part of the Volkswagen Group. That's why 40% is a conservative value. We could have mentioned higher values. So cutting your charging cost at half just by organizing it in a smart way already really brings a huge level in that, right? And if you're now continuing on that, and if you're adding even PV surplus to that, you are above 60–70% cut of your charging cost. And seeing that potential in that, and seeing at the same time the complexity raising, we decided to also provide a dynamic energy tariff to our customers, right? So during the last years, we provided a normal energy tariff, the Volkswagen Naturstrom. But these days, we also launched the dynamic tariff because it goes hand in hand, and it makes it easy for the customers to just go along with that. And there again, we are with trust. The Volkswagen brand and the brands of the Volkswagen Group, they bring a lot of trust. So it is a good positioning in front of the customer to enlarge this portfolio. And when we're talking about PV, we also decided to go with a partnership to leverage that even more. And we announced that a few days ago that we chose Otovo as our preferred partner. Otovo is a Norwegian company, is actually one of the biggest PV suppliers in Europe. They're active in 13 countries, and by that you can see our intention behind that, making it as easy as possible to our customers to experience e-mobility and renewable energies in combination. And we do some interesting stuff during the next weeks, really introducing that in the dealerships, exploring how we fit these sales journeys are fitting into each other, and making sure that we create a really nice bundling for our customers. So by that you see that it's really all about lowering the TCOs, making the overall business case for the customers way cheaper. And if I would have to choose one slide for you guys today, it would be this slide, because this really shows what it's all about. What you can see here is, of course, it's a PowerPoint, but at the same time is what we're going to launch during the next days in combination with our new wall box. And the guiding topic is smart charging. And let me explain it a little bit more, because I think smart energy, smart charging is used quite a lot. It's quite a sexy marketing expression, right? But it's really important that we have the same understanding what's behind it, because how I mentioned before, for the customer, it stays quite simple, right? It's an integrated customer journey. The customer is using one central touch point to experience it. But in the background, a lot of magic is actually happening, right? We're combining cheap grid energy. We're combining PV surplus if you have a PV system installed at home. And what is really important to also state is that we are mixing that with the criteria of your vehicle, right? May it be your preferred departure time, may it be your state of charge and other criteria. And bringing all that into one synchronized charging plan, this is our value proposition, right? And many of the competitors that you're seeing and that you're listening to today, they finding innovative ways and they are tackling from one direction into that game. But we clearly see that our task and our mission is to combine that in the best possible way and feeding the vehicle with the best charging plan it's ever seen. And the core motivation driver for that is always to bring down TCOs and optimize the charging situation for our customers. And if you take a look at the app, you can actually see how these topics are also visually really melting into each other, right? You're seeing the blue line that is showing where the vehicle is charging when energy is cheap. Then you see the PV surplus line, and then you see the dotted line that is actually the solar forecast. So the customer gets a really nice understanding on what is going to happen when. At the same time, it's fully automated, right? So I have a third question for you, ladies and gentlemen, and this question for sure is a little bit more complex than the two before. So what do vehicle-to-X use cases add to value pools? And let's talk about euro per car per year. You could have had an idea provided by P3 this morning. What do you think? You can come up with a range in your head. Is it rather 50 euros? Is it rather 5,000 euros? And I keep it a little bit what the Markus from P3 said, right? Like you bring the number and then you feed the discussion a bit. And this is what I want to display with this slide. Here you can see a mix of studies that crossed our way during the last years and months. And you can see that I think the first really important message is never go just with one value. You need to go with the value and the assumptions that are behind it. Otherwise, the value is without any meaning. I think the second, what is quite important, is that we heard a range of between 400 and 600 euro this morning. We do see even higher potential on that, and I'm going to explain why in a few seconds, seeing that there's music in it, right? So look at that, this is significant. If you're setting that up in a way that the customer can really participate and that you as the one providing the services are also participating, this will be a huge leverage in the industry. Also worth mentioning, I was, and Markus, good to see you. You discussed a little bit the software update capability of Volkswagen. I want to add a second perspective. Actually, Volkswagen is one of the first companies providing bidirectional charging in a bigger scale, right, with all their car models. So this is why we're spending actually a lot of energy right now on making that into really a reasonable customer offering. And also that, I will come back in a second. So you see that we have a clear understanding on that these topics should not be offered or worked on isolated, right? You cannot introduce bidirectional charging in a bigger scale to your customers without doing your homework in the two topics before. Also understanding that during the next year, smart charging is going to be the big level for the customers. So let's spend another minute on bidirectional charging. So I want to share some of the insights and some of the aspects we're hitting these days when I'm listening to our BD project teams. So the first one is really about which kind of protocols should be used, what should be offered to partners, etc. And these days, I just mentioned that actually there's quite a bunch of Volkswagen vehicles already providing bidirectional charging in theory, because what is missing is actually the infrastructure offer on the other side that makes it really relevant. I do see that P3 is probably giving good salaries, so you're one of the few going with the setting that we're providing today, but our task is really to make it available to as many as possible. So for the moment, we're working on proprietary protocols. At the same time, if you want to scale, if you want to open it, you need to follow 15.11.8-20. The second aspect that is interesting is what should go first, or what should you focus on? What are relevant use cases you can monetize? And we clearly see that in the first step, you should provide and execute vehicle to home or vehicle to building use cases. There, the stage is set. Technology-wise, it works. It's more a question on how to combine vehicle and charging infrastructure in a way that it's a business case for your customer and for yourself. Vehicle to grid then follows during the next years, knowing that, for example, in Germany, there are still some barriers to take, right? The German tax law does not know a mobile storage logic, so it doesn't make sense to offer vehicle to grid in a country like Germany as of today without giving a good framing to your customer. The third one is the mix of, okay, I'm clearly having a B2C glasses on, but we do see that it makes sense to provide that in both, right? And we're working on offering for both business lines, because in the commercial and the fleet context, you have a bigger scale, you can organize it in a perhaps cleaner and more structured way. At the same time, my intention today is to give you this understanding. Why is charging at home crucial? What's the B2C story for the Volkswagen Group, and how bidirectional charging is also quite crucial in there. So in regards to the time, let's come closely to an end, and let's end high, right? And what you see here is actually the reason why we're hustling, why we're getting up, why there's a lot of spirit and energy at Elli. This is our North Star, and let me explain it to you in a few seconds. And it's actually quite easy to understand, because we do see a lot of potential in combining thousands of batteries. May it be the batteries of the electric vehicles, may it be your storage at home, or may it be even big industrial storages, so-called power centers. Combining them into one big virtual network really unlocks additional business models, right? And if you look and if you consider the business range that I just showed, on the rather left side, so rather the 300-400 euros, this is a lot about energy trading, right? And you have a physical charging, discharging of the vehicle. But once you're crossing that tipping point and you're providing a bigger network, and by that a lot of flexibility to the energy market, several business models are stacking up that are actually not even leading to a physical charging process. So may it be high frequency trading, may it be asset-backed trading. So by these business models, you're leveraging actually your network, and in most of the cases, you're not even using the battery in reality. So combining that, orchestrating that, on the way to that, providing the best customer journey, this is our North Star. To sum it up, how to turn charging pain to gain. Understand that charging is a crucial part of your product offering, and don't leave it aside. Second, make it smart. By making it smart, you can really bring down the TCOs of e-mobility and kicking away the barriers that are still existing for e-mobility and scale. And the third one, once you're adding bidirectional charging to the game, you will really leverage the battery and come to a situation where you have zero emission at zero costs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joschi. I think we have a few minutes left for questions before the lunch break. So there's a hand raised over here and one over here. And we have one on the screen. So what do you think about wireless charging? It's a tough one for you.
It's a nice one. At the end, I think it all comes down to 2 or 3 factors, right? The first one is, and I mentioned it several times, about convenience, making it easy. And for sure, wireless charging is feeding this process, right? Yeah. Because we're coming at a point where you need to explain the customer, plug in your vehicle and leave it, right? Even if it's for 10, 14, 20 hours. Originally, you would have in mind, okay, I'm plugging it for the time where I'm charging and then I'm unplugging it. But making it available for 20 hours or all the time, this is going to be a challenge on that. And then wireless charging for sure helps. The second perspective I want to share on that is, of course, it's a business case behind it or not, right?
Yeah.
So the technology that I'm aware of in this context is more expensive. It needs some special infrastructure way, so perhaps it could feed the commercial and the fleet context in a better way. For B2C, I would have my challenges.
Also
on that.
efficiency, if you want to charge in public. We had other questions. Microphones, you've got one. And there's another question here at the back.
Yeah. Joschi, in your presentation, similar as Markus earlier this morning, you've shown the one family home as an example where it's relatively easy to combine a wall box, battery storage, photovoltaic systems, at least if you are halfway tech savvy. But reality is majority of Germans are living in multi-tenant houses or homeowners associations. So do you already have any product offerings available to also reach those markets, or ask differently, what needs to happen from stakeholders, so industry, legislation, to make that a reality in Germany as well? And the question is, of course, also open to Markus.
Yeah. Then when I started at Elli a year ago, it was the third question I kind of asked Giovanni and pitched. And at the end of the day, it's a lot about focus and getting your portfolio somehow right? And you saw it at the beginning. It's quite a heavy portfolio, right? So does it make sense what you're mentioning, offering smart charging and offering these solutions also to multi-apartment buildings? Of course it does. Have we set focus on that during the last months? No, we didn't, because we do see that starting with the one family house, it brings some enablers on your table, right? And once you have fixed that and once this works, then open up and enlarge it. And then the counter position of that is also feeding fleet use cases on that. And what you mentioned is kind of in the middle of that, right? So you're going to see that during the next 1 or 2 years that we're feeding the offering on that. But to be open, there's no focus on that right now. Understanding that, of course, there's a lot of potential in that, and yeah, full stop. Markus, I don't know if you anything to add.
We have another question
the tricky
over here.
questions I'm going to pass to you. Okay, I'm going to stay with it.
We have a question from online. The shown studies around V2X seem to examine V2G exclusively. How would the same look like for V2H, so vehicle to home, and what are the differences when it comes to comparing the potential revenue of vehicle to home and vehicle to grid? Do these projections vary by country and region?
That's a big one. Let me pick up the main aspects on that. So I mentioned that we see first vehicle to home and then vehicle to grid. We do see that because vehicle to home is also really feeding the smart charging story, right? Bringing TCOs down. You have the battery anyhow there and invested. So it makes a lot of sense to use that as a storage. And that logic is also kind of known and understandable, right? At the same time, many of if you want to go farther right on your potential range, of course, this comes through vehicle to grid, right? As long as you're staying in this vehicle to home context, for sure, it has a limitation.
Thank you.
It was a quick one, but I hope I could address it.
We have enough time for the question at the back.
Yeah, hi, Roche. In your first slides, I remember that you instructed one picture of your storage charger, and I work for an automobile components company. I see the storage charger in many of Volkswagen plants. So, but you didn't say too much about the storage DC charger. Could you care to give us more information?
I will try. I'm not sure I understood your question completely, but the logic of Elli is that we are providing some of the components in-house. We see, okay, we need to own the customer journey in that product, and there's a business case behind it. At the same time, we're also providing third-party infrastructure, right? So a good example is once you look at the commercial business line, it's really about finding the best approach for the customer. It could be provided by our own charger, but it could also be provided by a third-party solution that fits better in this use case. And this is why if you're crossing Volkswagen space, of course, there are also different kind of charging infrastructure in use, right? Because at the end of the day, it needs to fit the use case. And within Elli, we're providing two kind of charging infrastructure, the AC unidirectional wall box for the moment, and the flex pole with a battery solution DC charger.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I see no further. There's one further question. Final, please.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm really impressed what Elli has been able to build over the last couple of years. I know it has been quite a journey, and a rough journey at times. But anyways, a quick question regarding your sales model. I mean, how do you sort of approach your customers? I mean, are you putting this on your dealers, or are you going for a direct sales model? Because, you know, typically the installers are the ones that bring this kind of technology to the customer, right? So the guys who do the PV, everything that comes with it, wall box. So is this new topic for your dealerships?
Very good question. So let's start at the point that at the dealerships, it needs to be a must, right? If you want to sell electric mobility in a proper way, you need to sell it coming up with the solutions that your customer need, right? So this is what I mentioned before, that we put a lot of focus in that, in enabling the dealers in an easy and the best way. And this comes with education, but this also comes with a right provisioning of the dealers, etc. Clearly for us, this channel is the most important one, right? The second one, at the same time, it makes sense to generate some interest and some buzz on B2C customer side, right? You're going to see during the next weeks and months that charging will be more and more part of the overall communication of the brands, which is quite nice, right? That has not always been the case. And if you look at BMW, for example, they're really pushing in bringing charging into the core communication. So this creates interest for the customer and understanding, right? Understanding, oh, there's a Volkswagen wallbox. Okay, it makes sense to go with a Volkswagen wallbox in combination with a Volkswagen car, etc. And we're also going to explore more on social media, right? How could we feed these use cases and make it happen that the customer is actually entering the Volkswagen dealership or Skoda dealership or whatever, or contacting his installer already with the decision made, asking for the Elli Volkswagen Cupra wallbox, whoever, right? Then you mentioned installers, and to be honest, that's a challenge, right? And installers is not the most important sales channels on that, but one of the top three. And this is where it is, for example, the Otovo partnership is also feeding that channel, right? Because with the installer network that Otovo brings to the table, we directly have entrance to that in some kind of scale, installers that are installing our wallbox. At the same time, Charge Guru is around. I don't know if Florian is still here. So using your partner networks to make it more familiar, and then again also bring it with some nice provisioning so that for the installer it makes sense, right? But you hit the right point. It's for sure not the easiest channel to work. So this is the mix of that, and then we see further channels, but these three are the top focus for us right now.
Thank you.